Well, many people are changing their habits, dining out less as prices climb. Now, a new study suggests thousands of restaurants across Canada could close this year after plenty of closures in 2025. The Edmonton region will be losing its newest local grocery chain. Staff here at Local Quality Market in Sherwood Park confirming to City News the market will close next Thursday along with the Crestwood location in Edmonton. Customers' reaction ranges from sad to shock. Hudson's Bay has been a staple in Canada for centuries. I think it's really sad because it's so old. It's just been around for so long. It's kind of an iconic Canadian brand. Canada has been shaken by a stunning economic jolt as nearly 50,000 businesses disappeared in a single month, sending shockwaves through the country's retail streets and small business sector. Behind that explosive number, it's not just small shops struggling. Major brands like Hudson's Bay and Toys R Us Canada are also closing stores and facing serious trouble. When iconic brands and neighborhood businesses start disappearing at the same time, it raises a disturbing question. If this trend continues, it could be a warning that Canada's economic engine is starting to decline. The place that once felt like the heartbeat of your community are quietly disappearing, and it's very unsettling. You feel it in your gut like something just doesn't add up. And then the names started appearing. Most Canadians never imagined these could crumble. Hudson's Bay, founded in 1670, older than the country itself. It may look like odds and ends, but to many, they're pieces of Canadian history. A little slice of nostalgia. She may get decorated on special occasions. Go in my garden. We're going to have fun with her. Decades long, Hudson's Bay customers heading in to say goodbye. It's been my go-to for weddings, funerals, and any other time I need some nice attire. So for more than 3 centuries, it survived wars, depressions, pandemics, and economic crashes that wiped out other countless companies. Yet in 2025, even that legacy collapsed. The chain was liquidated. More than 8,300 employees were terminated, and one of the most historic brands in North America simply disappeared from the retail map. When a company that lasted over 350 years suddenly vanishes, it stops being just another business failure. It starts to look like something far bigger. A moment when a piece of national history is cleared off the shelves, discounted, and quietly erased. I don't want to grow up. It's a retail brand steeped in nostalgia for generations of Canadian kids. We used to get all of our toys as a kid from Toys R Us. It wasn't really other places to get them from, right? But times have definitely changed. Those former Toys R Us kids no longer have many places to shop. There were more than 80 locations across the country when the company's owners purchased Toys R Us in 2021. As of this week, every Calgary location has now been shuttered. And across the country, stores are either closed or have plans to close soon. Toys R Us Canada filed for creditor protection in February 2026. Frank and Oak suspended all Canadian online and retail operations in May 2025. Eddie Bauer entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings on February 9, 2026, and immediately began store closing sales across locations spanning the United States and 6 Canadian provinces. These are not obscure names. They are the brands that Canadians grew up with, spent money in, brought their kids to, and they're disappearing one after another like dominoes that nobody bothered to stand back up. But the equity that came in really didn't do anything to address underlying root issues, and we've just come full circle again, where financially it's not a viable model. I think it's very disappointing because I've been going to those stores all my life pretty well and with the kids and that. So yeah, no, it's pretty sad. It kind of sucks. This is the proof that should alarm Ottawa. Big brands and small businesses are collapsing at the same time. When only small shops fail, economists call it market friction. But when iconic national brands fall alongside neighborhood stores, that's not friction. That's literal structural failure spreading through the entire consumer economy. Not easy to run a business in uncertain times. Likely much harder if you're a small business owner without many options. The Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses says these owners are being squeezed by the trade war. Walk down any commercial street right now. Boarded windows, lease signs that haven't moved in months. Then the anchor store leaves, the one that kept the plaza alive. Foot traffic collapses. Smaller stores lose the customers they relied on. One by one, they all shut down. Soon, the entire strip turns into a ghost. And this isn't happening in one city. It's happening across Canada, coast to coast, in plain sight. Trouble brewing at this Toronto Starbucks. I'm surprised and disappointed. Saturday was the final day for this store. This is a neighborhood spot, so it's kind of sad that they're closing. The reason that this hits harder than the normal downturn is the combination. Closures surging at 5% while openings fall to 4.2%. It's not creative destruction. Creative destruction requires replacement. When entrepreneurs stop believing that it's worth opening something new, the market is not churning, it is draining. Net active businesses fell by more than 9,000 in just 1 month. That number represents jobs lost, tax revenue gone, communities thinned out, and confidence evaporating in real time. Canadians are cutting back on eating out, and restaurants are feeling it. A new study suggests thousands of restaurants could close in 2026, 50% decline in the last 3 months. Owner Steve Crawford says things have been majorly slowing down as folks tighten their budgets more and more, with tough economic times forcing families to cut back on discretionary spending like eating out. He says even he's not dining out as much. Now look at the restaurant sector because it tells the whole story in one number. In early 2024, Restaurants Canada reported that 62% of restaurants were operating at a loss or barely breaking even. 62% of them. That's more than half of the entire industry running on fumes while still showing up and serving food. Sales could look acceptable from the outside. Dining rooms could appear busy. But when rent, food costs, insurance, wages, utilities, and those debt payments rise faster than revenue, the business is dying in slow motion. The lights are still on. The staff is still showing up, but the math has already decided the outcome. Well, some big news today from Canada's central bank. And it's big because things are staying status quo. The Bank of Canada announced today it will hold its key overnight rate despite speculation it would raise the rate for the first time in more than 3 years. But inflation is heating up, and we've heard about that as an issue across this country. The Bank of Canada hiked rates from 0.25% all the way to 5% in the most aggressive tightening cycle in recent memory. By January 2026, the rate had come back down to 2.25%, and some people looked at that and said, problem solved. Rate comes down, businesses recover. Except that's not how this works. The damage does not undo itself the moment the policy rate drops. Small firms refinanced at peak costs. They locked in that expensive debt. They lost customers who were squeezed out of spending. They deferred investment and watched competitors with deeper pockets survive while they suffocated. The rate coming down helps the next cycle, but it does not resurrect the businesses that already died in this one. Our consumers under tremendous financial pressure. They're having a hard time buying food at the grocery store. So they're not spending as much time in food service. And those food costs are going up for restaurants, too. So are rent and insurance. Restaurants Canada says 41% of restaurants are operating at a loss or barely breaking even, but are keeping prices low because they know customers are budgeting. Consumers are not pulling back because they suddenly prefer staying home. They are pulling back because housing costs, grocery bills, insurance premiums, and financing payments have consumed so much of their monthly income that discretionary spending has become a luxury. When a family sits down and trims the budget, the local cafe goes first. The independent bookstore goes second. The neighborhood salon goes third. Big box stores survive because people still need essentials. The small independent operators who've made communities feel alive get cut from the budget before anything else. Overall inflation is holding steady, but grocery prices are taking a bite out of budgets, rising 4.7%, the fastest pace in nearly 2 years. Berries, citrus, orange, lemons, limes, cabbage, all of them are going up. At Monthers Aid's independent grocery store in Winnipeg, he says he tries hard to get the best prices for his customers. And underneath all of this sits a debt layer that never fully healed. Pandemic relief programs kept thousands of businesses alive through CO. But that survival came with borrowing. Many firms entered 2022 and 2023 carrying pandemic debt into the environment of rising costs, slowing demand, and rate shock simultaneously. A business can survive one bad year, sometimes two. But when pandemic debt collides with inflation, then the rate hikes, then weakening consumer spending, and on top of that, tariff disruption, the cumulative weight becomes impossible to carry regardless of how hard the owner is actually working. That sounds pretty alarming. Small businesses feel they aren't getting enough support from the government, and they're beset by removal of the de minimis customs exemption tariffs. So, a lot of challenges right now for small companies. There certainly is. 74% of those small businesses are citing inflation as their top challenge. 50% are pointing to weak consumer spending, and 38% are saying there's just a serious lack of government support at the moment. The Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses reported in March 2026 that 68% of Canadian small businesses said they were negatively affected by U.S. tariffs. 44% said steel and aluminum tariffs specifically remained a major ongoing challenge. These are not businesses that were already struggling. These are businesses that survived everything else, made it into 2026, and then got hit with another wave. Trade war pressure does not arrive in isolation. It lands on top of everything that came before it. And it lands hardest on the smallest operators who have the fewest resources left to absorb another shock. A new study out of Dalhousie University projects more than 4,000 restaurants could close across Canada this year, with 7,000 already shutting their doors in 2025. Because of that uncertainty, business owners are freezing. CFIB found that roughly a quarter to a third of affected firms paused hiring plans. They delayed machinery purchases and pulled back on inventory orders. When enough businesses stop hiring at the same moment, unemployment does not need a single dramatic layoff event. It rises quietly through frozen growth. And when owners stop investing in equipment, productivity stagnates. The economy does not collapse in what headline. It hollows out over months, while official messaging keeps calling it resilient. All right. A new report from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business suggests 1 in 5 small businesses dealing with tariff costs will not last more than 6 months if nothing changes. So, let's 1 in 5 businesses affected by current conditions told CFIB they could not last more than 6 months if nothing changed. Close to 4 in 10 said something would need to change within 12 months. Those are not projections from analysts sitting in office towers. Those are confessions from owners who are still open right now, still serving customers, still paying their staff, and quietly calculating how many payroll cycles that they have left before the math wins. Well, it's small businesses of all sectors who are really going to be the most impacted and have been the most impacted by this trade war. They're really caught in the crossfires and being squeezed in every direction by increased costs and ultimately lower revenues because consumers are holding their cards close to their chest, too. Small businesses represent 97.9% of employer business in Canada. This is not a sentimental side story about mom and pop shops. This is the base layer of the entire economy. When that base thins at this scale, the tax base weakens, local employment shrinks, competition disappears, and pricing power shifts towards giant platforms and chains that outlasted everyone else. Ottawa has collected millions of dollars as a result of these counter tariffs. And so CFIB has been calling for Ottawa to return those funds immediately to help small businesses weather this storm as trade talks continue. Whether that's through a reduction of the small business tax rate or through direct rebates, as we saw them do with the carbon tax money that needed to be returned. The political dimension is unavoidable when tens of thousands of closures stack up, when Hudson Bay disappears, when iconic names file for bankruptcy in the same month. When families feel poorer despite being told that the economy is stable, this gap between official messaging and lived reality becomes a crisis of its own. That gap is what generates political heat. That gap is what makes resilience narratives sound hollow to the people experiencing the opposite. That is the real pressure landing on Ottawa right now. HBC's 96 stores across Canada, all closing Sunday. Its distribution centers shutting in 2 weeks. More than 9,000 employees laid off without severance. There is also a shipping and logistics layer that rarely gets enough attention. Small Canadian sellers, depending on cross-border e-commerce and courier networks, are getting squeezed from a completely different angle. When the cost of fulfilling a single order eats the entire margin on that order, the small seller does not just lose profit. The entire business model stops working. A large corporation absorbs logistics friction as a line item. A small seller absorbs it as an existential question about whether the next order is even worth sending. Apparently, Canada just saw 1 in 20 businesses close in 1 month, the highest rate since the lockdown started, and businesses literally couldn't operate. The article kicks off by talking about how almost 50,000 businesses closed in the month of June. And it also digs into how new businesses aren't opening up anymore. Free paths exist from here. The concentration path means giant chains absorb everything that small operators leave behind, and communities get identical, soulless strips with no local ownership. The exit path means skilled workers and entrepreneurs decide Canada is too expensive and too uncertain to build something in, and they simply stop trying. The correction path means cutting cost burdens, improving internal trade between provinces, returning tariff relief directly to small businesses faster, and making it genuinely viable to open and sustain a business here. CFIB has been vocal about all three. The question is whether Ottawa moves fast enough to matter. There would be no HBC. This is a company that's 355 plus years old. How could you let this happen? It's not right. The hardest truth is this. When local businesses disappear at this pace, the loss isn't just economic. It's civic. Communities lose character. Neighborhoods lose identity. And the owner who knew your name is replaced by a self-checkout screen and a corporate support line. Nearly 50,000 businesses are gone in 1 month. The streets already knew. The numbers just simply confirmed it. So, when you look around your own city right now, what do you actually see? An economy that's growing, or more empty storefronts and closing signs confirming what the numbers are already telling us?